Several years ago, I worked as a night shift nurse in a venerable hospital, steeped in history and whispered legends. This hospital, with its sprawling corridors and antiquated wards, had always been a place where the past seemed to mingle with the present. One night, I was assigned to the pediatric ward, located in the oldest wing of the building. The atmosphere there was palpable, heavy with the weight of history and tales untold. As the night deepened, a sense of unease began to creep over me. The usual hospital sounds seemed more pronounced, and the shadows cast by the dim lights appeared darker and more ominous. It was during these quiet hours that I first heard it, a faint, distant crying emanating from one of the rooms. Concerned, I set out to investigate, thinking a child might be in distress. The crying seemed to be coming from room 302, a room that had been out of use for some time due to renovations. As I approached, the crying grew louder, more desperate. I hesitated at the door, a chill running down my spine. The room was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the dusty windows, casting eerie shadows across the old furniture. But as I entered, the crying abruptly intensified, then stopped. The room was empty, yet the air was thick with an inexplicable energy. Perplexed and unnerved, I stood there, trying to make sense of the situation. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped noticeably. A cold breeze swept through, causing the hairs on the back of my neck to stand up. I quickly left the room, trying to shake off the eerie feeling that had settled over me. Throughout the night, strange occurrences continued to happen. Lights flickered without reason, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallways, even though I was certain I was alone. Later in the night, I received a call from the front desk. The security guard, visibly shaken, reported seeing a shadowy figure moving through the corridor on the cameras. Intrigued and apprehensive, I decided to join him in the security office to review the footage. As we watched the monitors, we witnessed inexplicable events. A figure moved through the halls, doors opened and closed on their own, and at one point, a faint, ghostly shade appeared near room 302. The seasoned security guard looked at me with wide eyes and said, "I've seen strange things in this hospital, but never this." We decided to conduct a thorough check of the hospital, room by room. As we reached room 302, the atmosphere became thick with an unexplained energy. The door was ajar, and as we entered, the temperature dropped dramatically. We heard the sound of a child's laughter echoing in the empty room. The security guard and I exchanged terrified glances. We couldn't explain the phenomena we had witnessed that night. The hospital had a reputation for being haunted, but experiencing it firsthand was an entirely different matter. The next morning, I spoke to some of the staff, and they all shared their own chilling encounters in that wing of the hospital. It seemed that room 302 had a reputation for being haunted, with numerous reports of unexplained events over the years. Whether it was the product of a vivid imagination or something truly supernatural, that night in the hospital left an indelible mark on my memory. The experience lingered with me, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between the known and the unknown, forever blurring the lines in the dimly lit corridors of that old pediatric ward. In the heart of a hospital that had stood the test of time, with its walls echoing decades of medical history and whispered rumors of the paranormal, I encountered an experience that defies explanation. Known among the staff for its long-standing history and occasional eerie tales, the hospital was a place where reality seemed to intertwine with the inexplicable. One fateful night during my graveyard shift, a series of events unfolded that would forever etch itself in my memory. I was assigned to the orthopedic ward, a section of the hospital where the air was heavy with the quiet suffering of patients either recovering from surgery or receiving postoperative care. Around 2 a.m., the stillness of the night was broken by a call from room 4:15, an isolated room at the end of a long, dimly lit hallway. The call was unexpected. Room 4:15 was known to be unoccupied. As I picked up the phone, all I heard was heavy breathing and a faint, indistinct whisper. Assuming it was a patient in need, I made my way towards the room, my footsteps echoing in the silent corridor. As I approached room 4:15, a sense of unease began to take hold. The air felt thicker, and a chill ran down my spine. The door creaked open to reveal an empty room, the patient call button still lit, indicating someone had summoned assistance. Puzzled, I checked the hallway surveillance cameras, only to find the footage showing the door opening slowly on its own and the call button activating without any visible cause. No one was in the hallway during that time. Shaken, I dismissed it as a technical glitch, but deep down, I felt there was more to it. As the night progressed, strange occurrences began to unfold. Lights flickered without cause, the intercom crackled sporadically, and I occasionally heard muffled conversations, though no one was around. The atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive, and an inexplicable sense of being watched crept over me. Later in the night, I had to check on a patient in room 4:14, adjacent to the mysterious room 4:15. As I neared, I heard muffled voices from inside. Upon entering, the patient, an elderly woman recovering from hip surgery, looked at me with wide, fearful eyes. "You were visiting me, dear?" "The ones who don't belong here," she whispered. Chills ran down my spine as she described seeing shadowy figures in old-fashioned clothing, silently standing by her bedside, whispering to each other, seemingly unaware of her presence. She insisted they were the ghosts of people who had died in the hospital long ago. I finished my rounds, trying to rationalize the night's events. However, room 4:15 became notorious among the hospital staff for its unexplained occurrences. Even initially skeptical colleagues reported strange happenings when assigned to that room. To this day, I can't fully explain the eerie events that took place during that night shift. The hospital's reputation for being haunted became a topic of hushed conversations among the staff, and the mystery of room 4:15 remains unsolved. The experience left me with a profound sense of the unknown, a reminder that some things in this world defy logical explanation. The mystery of room 4:15, with its unexplained phenomena and chilling encounters, continues to haunt the corridors of the hospital, a spectral imprint on the fabric of its history. In the hushed, sterile corridors of the hospital's intensive care unit, ICU, where the line between life and death often hangs by a thread, I encountered a mystery that defies the boundaries of the known world. The hospital, with its long-standing reputation for strange occurrences, especially during the night shifts, was no stranger to tales of the unexplained. Yet, nothing could have prepared me for the events that unfolded during one unforgettable night. It was a shift like any other in the ICU, where the critical nature of patients' conditions demanded constant vigilance. Around 3 a.m., a solemn moment came as Miss Anderson, a patient who had been battling a prolonged illness, passed away. Following hospital protocol, I prepared her body for transfer to the morgue, a task I had performed numerous times, yet it never became easier. The atmosphere in the ICU was somber, a silent testament to the fragility of life. As I made my way to the morgue, the empty, echoing hallways of the hospital felt more oppressive than usual. Upon entering the cold, sterile room of the morgue, I immediately noticed a sudden drop in temperature, an occurrence not entirely unusual given the environment, but this time it was different. The air felt thick, charged with an unexplained energy that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. As I began the process of transferring Miss Anderson's body from the gurney to the morgue refrigerator, a voice behind me broke the silence. "Thank you," it said, soft yet clear. Startled, I spun around, half expecting to see a colleague who might have entered the room unnoticed. But I was alone. The room seemed to grow even colder, and a chill ran down my spine. I quickly completed the task and left the room, feeling an inexplicable sense of relief as I stepped outside. In the days that followed, unusual reports began to surface from the ICU. Staff members spoke of flickering lights, faint whispers in the night, and some even claimed to see a shadowy figure near Miss Anderson's former bed. While many dismissed these occurrences as coincidences or the product of a stressful work environment, those of us who had been in the morgue that night couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that Miss Anderson had expressed her gratitude from beyond the grave. The hospital's reputation for the paranormal seemed to grow with each shared story and experience among the staff working the night shift. Whenever I passed the ICU, memories of that night would flood back, reminding me of the unexplained events that unfolded in the wake of Miss Anderson's passing. The ICU's unseen visitor, as it came to be known, remained a topic of both fascination and fear. The experience challenged my understanding of the world and left me pondering the mysteries that lie beyond our comprehension. The hospital, a place where life and death intersect, had revealed a glimpse into something extraordinary, something that defied explanation and left a lasting imprint on all who experienced it. The ICU's unseen visitor, whether a figment of collective imagination or a genuine encounter with the unknown, remains an enigmatic chapter in the hospital's history, a whispering echo in the corridors of the unknown. Working as a security guard at a large shopping center, I had grown accustomed to the eerie stillness that enveloped the place during the night shifts. The once bustling corridors, echoing with the footsteps and chatter of shoppers, transformed into silent, shadow-filled passageways as the clock struck midnight. However, one particular night stands out in my memory, a night that challenged my understanding of reality and left me questioning the very fabric of the ordinary world. It was a routine shift that began like any other. The shopping center was completely deserted, with only the hum of the security system and the occasional creak of the building settling in to break the silence. As I made my rounds, checking doors and monitoring the CCTV cameras, a sense of unease began to creep over me. It was around 2 a.m. when I first noticed something amiss on one of the security monitors. A figure, barely discernible and shrouded in shadows, stood near the entrance. I radioed my colleague, who was also on duty, and we both rushed to the spot, only to find it deserted. The door was securely locked, and there was no sign of anyone having been there. Puzzled but not overly concerned, we returned to the security office. That's when the night took a turn into the inexplicable. On the monitors, we witnessed a series of bizarre events unfold. Lights flickered on and off in different parts of the shopping center, as if an unseen hand was playing with the switches. The eerie play of light and shadow created an unsettling atmosphere, and a feeling of being watched began to gnaw at us. As we continued our patrols, the strange occurrences escalated. We heard unexplained noises echoing through the corridors, a mix of cracking sounds, footsteps, and the occasional distant laughter that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. We searched every corner, expecting to find someone playing a prank, but the shopping center remained eerily empty. The feeling of unease grew stronger as the night progressed. Whispers, faint and distant, seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, sending chills down our spines. Our nerves were on edge, and at one point, a loud bang from a storage area sent us rushing to investigate. The room, however, was as we had left it, empty and undisturbed. As the night wore on, the inexplicable occurrences continued. Shadows darted across the security camera footage, and a sense of being followed pervaded the empty halls. Items in the stores appeared to move on their own, and the whispers grew louder, echoing through the empty corridors. The atmosphere became heavier, charged with an energy that I couldn't explain. By the end of my shift, I was thoroughly shaken. The events of that night defied logical explanation and left me questioning what I had experienced. Was it a trick of the mind, a series of technical glitches, or something far beyond our understanding? The shopping center, a place of commerce and leisure by day, had revealed a hidden, mysterious side in the dead of night. In the days that followed, my colleague and I shared our experiences with other staff members. Some were skeptical, while others recounted their own unexplained encounters in the shopping center. The night's events became a topic of hushed conversation and speculation, adding to the lore of the place. The mystery of what happened during that night shift at the shopping center remains unsolved. It stands as a chilling reminder that sometimes, in the stillness of the night, the ordinary can give way to the extraordinary, leaving us to wonder about the mysteries that lurk in the shadows of our everyday world. My experience as a security guard at a sprawling shopping center was mostly uneventful until the night I encountered what many would call the phantom of the food court. This incident, which unfolded over the course of a seemingly ordinary night shift, left an indelible mark on my psyche and forever altered my perception of the shopping center. It was a few weeks into my tenure at the shopping center. I had just transitioned from day shifts to night shifts, a change that brought with it an eerie stillness that pervaded the vast halls of the shopping complex. The night in question was particularly quiet. The usual bustle of shoppers had long since faded, leaving behind a silence that was both peaceful and unsettling. Around 2 a.m., while monitoring the CCTV system, something unusual caught my eye. It was a figure, seemingly male, leaning over the railing on the second floor in the food court area. Concerned that it might be someone in distress or a potential intruder, I quickly made my way to the location. To my bewilderment, upon arriving at the food court, I found it completely deserted. The area was silent, with chairs neatly tucked under tables and the food stalls shuttered for the night. Thinking it was a trick of the light or perhaps my imagination, I returned to my office. However, the sense of unease lingered. As I resumed my surveillance, the figure appeared again, this time clearer. The same man, leaning over the railing, looking down. The chill that ran down my spine was palpable. Once again, I rushed to the food court, but just like before, I found it empty. Perplexed and unnerved, I discussed the incident with a colleague the following morning. His reaction was one of both recognition and fear. He recounted a story that had circulated among the staff for years, the tale of an old construction worker who had died during the building of the shopping center. According to the story, he had been working on the second floor of the food court area when he tragically fell to his death. My colleague suggested that what I had seen was the ghost of this worker, forever lingering in the place of his untimely demise. This revelation sent a shiver down my spine. The thought that I might have witnessed the spectral presence of someone who had died long ago was both fascinating and terrifying. Despite my initial skepticism, the events of that night were too vivid to dismiss as mere hallucinations. In the months that followed, I continued to work night shifts, but I never encountered the phantom again. The experience, however, changed the way I viewed the shopping center. The once mundane corridors and the food court, in particular, now seemed to hold a deep, mysterious aura. The story of the old construction worker became a frequent topic among the night staff, with some even claiming to have had similar experiences. The phantom of the food court remains an enigma, a whispered legend among the staff and security personnel of the shopping center. Whether it was a figment of collective imagination or a genuine supernatural occurrence, it stands as a testament to the unseen histories that linger in places long after the people associated with them have gone. The shopping center, a hub of commerce by day, harbored a ghostly secret in its heart, a secret that revealed itself only under the cloak of night. Our adventure began as a quest for escape, a break from the monotony of our daily routines. My friends and I, a group of 5, decided to venture into a secluded forest known for its haunting beauty and eerie legends. The forest, shrouded in tales of unexplained phenomena and ghostly sightings, promised an exciting weekend getaway. Little did we know, our search for adventure would lead us into a night of unsettling encounters and chilling revelations. We set up camp in a picturesque clearing near a serene lake, surrounded by the dense embrace of ancient trees. The first day passed in blissful tranquility, with the sun casting dappled light through the leaves and the gentle lapping of the lake's water against its banks. As night descended, we gathered around the campfire, its flames casting a warm glow against the encroaching darkness. The mood was light, filled with laughter and the sharing of stories. However, as the night deepened, the atmosphere began to shift. The forest, alive with the sounds of nature during the day, grew eerily silent. The usual chorus of nocturnal creatures was conspicuously absent, replaced by a heavy, oppressive stillness. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting. It was then that we first heard the footsteps. Distinctly human, they seemed to circle our campsite, deliberate and measured. Armed with flashlights, we scoured the darkness, expecting to find a lost hiker or perhaps a fellow camper. But each time, the light revealed nothing but the empty forest. The footsteps would cease as abruptly as they had begun, leaving us in bewildered silence. As we tried to rationalize these occurrences, attributing them to the tricks of the mind in the dark, we noticed a faint glow emanating from deeper within the woods. It flickered like a candle, beckoning us. Compelled by a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, we decided to investigate. Our trek through the forest was tense, each snap of a twig underfoot sounding unnaturally loud. The glow seemed to recede as we approached, always just out of reach, leading us deeper into the heart of the woods. The air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding settled over us. Finally, we stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin, its existence seemingly out of place and time. The glow emanated from within, casting eerie shadows through the broken windows. The door, hanging off its hinges, creaked softly in the wind. As we mustered the courage to peer inside, the light flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. The forest around us fell into a silence so profound it felt like a physical presence. We stood there, frozen, as a chilling realization dawned upon us: we were not alone. The sensation of being watched was palpable. Suddenly, the stillness was broken by the sound of footsteps, this time rapidly approaching. We turned and fled, the adrenaline fueling our flight back to the safety of our campsite. That night, none of us slept. We were shaken, unable to comprehend what we had experienced. The forest, once a place of natural beauty, now felt imbued with a sinister energy. As dawn broke, we packed up our camp in haste, eager to leave the haunted woods behind. The experience lingered in our minds, a haunting memory that refused to be dismissed as mere imagination. In the days that followed, we researched the history of the forest and the cabin. We learned of old legends, tales of lost travelers, and stories of a hermit who once lived in the woods, his spirit rumored to still roam the area. Our experience added a new chapter to the lore of the haunted forest, a tale that we would share with a mix of fear and fascination. The camping trip, intended as an escape, turned into a journey into the unknown, a confrontation with the mysteries that lie beyond the realm of understanding. The haunted forest, with its ghostly cabin and unexplained phenomena, remains a place of enigmatic allure, a reminder of the thin veil that separates the known from the unknown. Our story unfolds in the heart of a dense, ancient forest, known among locals as the Whispering Woods. This name was derived from the countless tales told by those who ventured into its depths and returned with stories of eerie whispers that seemed to emanate from the very trees themselves. My friends and I, a group of avid adventurers, were drawn to these woods, intrigued by the mysteries and the spine-tingling allure of the unknown. We planned our expedition meticulously, aiming to delve deeper into the forest than any of us had dared before. The first part of our journey was uneventful, filled with the typical joys of a hike through nature. The forest was lush, its canopy a vibrant tapestry of greens and golds, with sunlight filtering through in beautiful, hazy beams. Birds chirped merrily, and the air was fresh with the scent of pine and earth. It was peaceful, yet as we ventured further, an inexplicable sense of unease began to settle over us. As evening approached, we set up camp in a small clearing. The forest around us had begun to change, the trees older, their branches gnarled and twisted, as if contorting to whisper secrets to one another. We gathered around the campfire, its warm glow a small comfort against the encroaching chill of the night. That's when we first heard them, the whispers. Soft and indistinct, they seemed to float on the breeze, a symphony of hushed tones that was both mesmerizing and deeply unsettling. We strained to understand, but the words, if words they were, remained elusive, dancing just beyond our comprehension. Determined to uncover the source of these whispers, we embarked on a nocturnal exploration. Armed with flashlights, we delved into the heart of the whispering woods. The deeper we went, the more intense the whispers became, a cacophony of ethereal voices that seemed to echo from the very soul of the forest. Our journey led us to an ancient part of the woods, where the trees were so densely packed that little moonlight could penetrate their thick canopy. Here, the whispers grew louder, and we could now discern distinct voices, though their language was foreign to our ears, an ancient dialect unspoken by modern civilization. In the heart of this ancient grove, we stumbled upon a sight that took our breath away, a circle of stone monoliths, ancient and covered in moss, arranged in a precise pattern that spoke of deliberate placement by human hands long ago. The air around these stones was thick with a palpable energy, and the whispers seemed to emanate directly from them, as if the stones themselves were alive with voices from another time. We stood there, transfixed, as the whispers swirled around us, a storm of voices from an unseen realm. It was then that we noticed the shadows, figures, human in shape but ethereal in nature, moving between the trees, their forms blurry and indistinct. They seemed to be drawn to the stone circle, moving around it in a ritualistic dance that had perhaps been enacted here for millennia. Fear and fascination rooted us to the spot. We were witnessing something otherworldly, a window into a realm that defied explanation. The shadows continued their dance, and the whispers grew to a crescendo, enveloping us in a sound that felt both ancient and alive. As suddenly as it had begun, the spectacle ceased. The shadows vanished, and the whispers died down to a mere murmur before fading away completely. We were left in silence, the forest around us seemingly just as it had been, yet irrevocably changed in our eyes. We returned to our campsite, not speaking much, each of us processing the night's surreal events. Sleep was elusive, and when dawn broke, we packed up and left the whispering woods, carrying with us the memory of that night. In the days that followed, we tried to rationalize what we had experienced, but no logical explanation could suffice. We had ventured into a realm where the natural and the supernatural intertwined, where the whispers of the past were as real as the trees that housed them. The whispering woods remained a place of mystery, a testament to the unknown that still dwells in hidden corners of our world. Our encounter in those ancient woods became a story we would share in hushed tones, a tale of the night we heard the whispers of a forgotten world. In a small town, nestled on the outskirts where the urban landscape gave way to sprawling fields and dense woods, stood an old house that had long been the subject of local legend. Known as the haunted house on the outskirts, it was a place that had fascinated and frightened the townsfolk for generations. The house, with its Victorian architecture, once grand and imposing, now stood in disrepair, its walls weathered and windows broken, a testament to years of neglect and abandonment. My curiosity about this house was piqued by the stories that had circulated in town since my childhood. Tales of ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and unexplained occurrences were part of the local lore. As a freelance writer with a keen interest in the paranormal, I decided to spend a night in the house, hoping to uncover the truth behind the tales. The day I arrived at the house, the weather was gloomy, with dark clouds hanging low, as if nature itself was wary of the place. The house stood at the end of a long, overgrown driveway, its once vibrant gardens now a tangle of weeds and dead plants. The air was heavy with a sense of foreboding, and as I pushed open the creaking gate, a chill ran down my spine. I entered the house just before dusk, my footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The interior was as dilapidated as the exterior, with peeling wallpaper, dust-covered floors, and an eerie silence that seemed almost tangible. I set up my equipment, including cameras and audio recorders, in various rooms, hoping to capture any paranormal activity that might occur. As night fell, the house took on a more sinister character. Shadows seemed to move and shift in the corners of my vision, and the silence was broken by the occasional creak and groan of the old structure. I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched, reminding myself that old houses often make strange sounds. However, as the night progressed, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. I heard faint whispers, like those in the stories, but whenever I tried to locate their source, they would stop abruptly. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate steps that seemed to move from one room to another. I followed the sounds, my heart pounding, but each time I entered a room, the footsteps would cease, and I would find nothing but empty space. The most chilling moment came when I was in the upstairs hallway. A cold breeze swept through, despite all the windows being shut. I heard a soft, distant voice, barely more than a breath, whispering my name. I turned around, flashlight in hand, but the hallway was empty. The temperature dropped suddenly, and I saw my breath in the air. It was then that I felt a hand on my shoulder, light but unmistakable. I spun around, but there was no one there. Terrified but determined, I continued my exploration. In one of the bedrooms, I found old photographs scattered on the floor, their subjects staring back at me with solemn, almost accusing eyes. In the attic, I discovered a child's toy, a wooden horse, its paint chipped and faded, sitting in the middle of the room as if waiting for its long-gone owner. As dawn approached, the strange occurrences intensified. The whispers grew louder, and I heard a child's laughter echoing through the halls. The sound of something dragging across the floor upstairs sent me rushing to investigate, only to find the attic empty, the toy horse now mysteriously on its side. Exhausted and unnerved, I left the house as the first light of dawn crept into the sky. The experience had been more intense and frightening than I had anticipated. The footage and recordings I had captured were filled with inexplicable anomalies, orbs of light, distorted voices, and the clear sound of footsteps where there should have been none. The haunted house on the outskirts remained a mystery, its secrets locked within its decaying walls. My night there had given me more questions than answers. Was the house truly haunted by the spirits of its past, or were the occurrences the product of the natural decay of an old building and an overactive imagination? The truth, it seemed, was as elusive as the whispers in the dark, leaving the house to continue its silent vigil over the outskirts, a sentinel to its own enigmatic history. Nestled in the rural outskirts of a sleepy town lay an old farmhouse, its history as rich as the soil that surrounded it. The farmhouse, with its weathered facade and ivy-clad walls, had stood the test of time, witnessing generations of change. Yet, it harbored a secret, one that had been whispered about in the town for years. The locals spoke of unexplained occurrences, eerie sounds, and a presence that lingered in its halls. As an author with a penchant for unraveling mysteries and a fascination with the supernatural, I found myself drawn to this enigmatic abode, eager to uncover its hidden past. My journey to the farmhouse was on a crisp autumn day, the kind where the air is filled with the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. The farmhouse, isolated and standing amidst sprawling fields, presented a picture of forgotten elegance. Its structure, though intact, bore the marks of neglect, with vines creeping up its sides and windows that gazed out like weary eyes. Upon entering, I was greeted by a silence that seemed almost reverent, as if the house itself was aware of my intrusion. The interior was a snapshot of the past, with antique furnishings covered in sheets, and faded photographs adorning the walls. The air was thick with the mustiness of age, and each step on the creaky wooden floorboards echoed through the empty rooms. As night descended, the farmhouse revealed its more unsettling nature. The stillness of the evening was broken by the sound of footsteps above, deliberate and heavy, yet when I ventured upstairs, the rooms were invariably empty. The air grew colder, a chill that seemed to seep into my bones, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. In the heart of the night, the peculiarities escalated. Doors creaked open on their own, and the soft rustling of fabric could be heard in the stillness. I recorded everything, my camera and audio equipment capturing the unexplainable phenomena. The most unsettling incident occurred in the old study, where I found an ancient diary belonging to the original owner of the farmhouse. As I leafed through its pages, filled with the mundane details of farm life, a cold gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing my candle and plunging me into darkness. In that moment, I heard a whisper, a voice laden with sorrow, murmuring words I couldn't quite understand. The following day, I explored the grounds, finding an old, overgrown garden and a dilapidated barn. Inside the barn, amidst the relics of agricultural past, I discovered old toys and a child's tricycle, rusted and forgotten. It was here that I felt an overwhelming sense of sadness, a palpable grief that hung in the air like a thick fog. As my investigation continued, I learned from the town's archives that the farmhouse had been home to a family who tragically lost their young child in an accident on the property. The diary I had found belonged to the mother, who, according to local lore, had never recovered from her loss, her spirit forever lingering in the place she once called home. My stay at the farmhouse culminated in an extraordinary event. On my last night, as I sat in the study, the temperature dropped dramatically, and the room filled with the soft, heart-wrenching sound of a woman weeping. The diary on the desk fluttered open as if caught in a breeze, the pages stopping on an entry that spoke of love and loss. It was then I realized that the whispers, the cold, and the unexplained occurrences were expressions of a mother's eternal grief, her presence forever woven into the fabric of the farmhouse. I left the farmhouse with a profound sense of respect for its history and its secrets. The experiences I had there, captured in my recordings and etched in my memory, spoke of a love that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The old farmhouse's secret was more than just tales of hauntings, it was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a poignant reminder that some bonds are so strong, not even time can sever them. The farmhouse stood, not just as a structure of wood and stone, but as a monument to the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child, its mystery as enduring as the love that fueled it. In the heart of a bustling city, overshadowed by modern skyscrapers, stood an old office building, its facade a stark contrast to its contemporary neighbors. This building, known for its long-standing history and architectural charm, had recently become the subject of my security duties. The building, largely unoccupied due to a recent downsizing, held an air of mystery that piqued my curiosity and unease. My shift began as the city's vibrant life started to dim, the sunset casting long shadows across the building's ornate lobby. The night shift, from midnight to 8 a.m., was a solitary affair, with only the hum of the building's aging air conditioning system for company. The building, once a hub of ceaseless activity, now lay in a hushed slumber, its empty corridors and offices echoing with the memories of days gone by. As I made my rounds, the eerie quiet of the building was palpable. The dimly lit hallways, lined with closed office doors, seemed to stretch endlessly, each corner veiled in shadow. The silence was occasionally broken by the creaking of old floorboards under my feet, a reminder of the building's age and the stories it held within its walls. It was on the 5th floor that the night took an unsettling turn. As I patrolled the corridor, a faint glow caught my attention. It emanated from one of the offices, where the door was slightly ajar. I knew for certain that the office should have been empty and dark, as the last of the employees had left hours before. My heart rate quickened as I approached the door, the light from within casting strange patterns on the floor. Peering into the office, I was met with an inexplicable sight. The room was frigid, the cold biting at my skin, and in the center stood an illuminated computer screen. The office was otherwise empty, the desk and chairs untouched, dust settling on the surfaces like a forgotten memory. The computer screen displayed a video chat window, the webcam activated, showing a face so distorted and pixelated it was unrecognizable. The figure on the screen stared back, its expression unreadable, sending a shiver down my spine. I called out, asking if anyone was there, but the figure remained silent, its gaze unwavering. Feeling a sense of dread, I reached out to disconnect the call, but as I did, the room seemed to grow even colder. A sense of being watched, of a presence in the room with me, was overwhelming. I quickly shut down the computer and left the office, closing the door behind me with a sense of urgency. The rest of my rounds were marked by a heightened sense of alertness. The building seemed to come alive with sounds I hadn't noticed before, the whispering of voices just beyond my hearing, footsteps that seemed to follow me but led nowhere, and the occasional creak of a door swinging gently on its hinges. Each sound made me pause, my flashlight casting beams into the darkness, revealing nothing but the emptiness of the building. The most chilling experience occurred as I descended the stairwell. The sound of footsteps echoed in the confined space, a steady rhythm that seemed to be descending with me. Yet, each time I stopped to listen, the footsteps would cease, only to resume once I continued my descent. By the time I reached the basement, the air was thick with anticipation. The basement, with its flickering lights and labyrinth of storage rooms, felt like a different world, one that harbored secrets from the past. In one of the storage rooms, I encountered the inexplicable once more. The room, filled with boxes and old furniture, was suffused with a sense of despair. As I turned to leave, a soft, disembodied laugh echoed around me, its source indiscernible. The laugh, tinged with sadness, seemed to resonate with the very walls of the building. The following day, I spoke with the daytime security guard, a veteran who had worked in the building for years. His expression turned serious as I recounted my experiences. He nodded, a knowing look in his eyes, and shared that he too had encountered unexplainable phenomena in the building. He spoke of shadows that moved of their own accord, whispers in empty rooms, and a feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. My time in the old office building left me with more questions than answers. The experiences of that night, a blend of history and mystery, lingered in my mind long after my shift had ended. The building, with its silent corridors and hidden past, seemed to exist in a realm between the known and the unknown, a place where the echoes of the past were felt in the present. The unsettling night in the office building was a reminder that some places hold secrets that are felt rather than seen, whispered in the shadows and hidden in the whispers of the night. In the heart of a bustling city, there stood an old hospital, its once pristine walls now echoing with the remnants of its past. Converted into office spaces, the building retained an aura of its former self, a sanctuary of healing turned into a citadel of corporate endeavors. I found myself employed as a night security guard here, a role that introduced me to the building's eerie nocturnal persona. My shift would start as twilight embraced the city, casting long shadows across the hospital's aged facade. The building, a blend of modern renovations and untouched historical sections, had always intrigued me. Its corridors, where the footsteps of doctors and nurses once echoed, now lay silent, save for the occasional creak of aging wood or the distant hum of the city outside. One fateful night, around 2 a.m., I began my routine patrol through the dimly lit hallways. The stillness of the night was palpable, broken only by the sound of my footsteps echoing off the walls. As I made my way through the East Wing, a section that had retained much of its original structure, I noticed something unusual, a flickering light emanating from one of the rooms. Approaching cautiously, I could feel the temperature around me dropping, a chill seeping into my bones. The door to the room was slightly ajar, and as I pushed it open, the light ceased abruptly, plunging the room into darkness. Fumbling for my flashlight, I shone it around the room, revealing an empty space that seemed untouched by time. It was then that I saw it, a figure, standing at the far end of the room, partially obscured by shadows. My heart raced as I called out, expecting a response from a trespasser. But the figure remained silent, its form dark and shapeless. As I ordered the figure to stop, it began moving towards me, slow and deliberate. Panic set in as I realized this was no ordinary intruder, The figure had no discernible features, just a dark, shapeless silhouette. In a moment of sheer terror, I stumbled backwards, reaching for my radio to call for backup. But as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. The oppressive feeling in the room lifted, and the temperature returned to normal. Shaken, I continued my rounds, trying to convince myself it was just a trick of the light or my imagination. However, the building had more secrets to reveal. Throughout the rest of my shift, I experienced a series of unexplainable events. Whispers echoed down the empty hallways, footsteps followed me but led nowhere, and doors creaked open and closed of their own accord. The most chilling encounter occurred in the basement, the building's oldest part. Here, the atmosphere was suffocating, the air thick with the weight of unspoken stories. In an old storage room, filled with relics of the hospital's past, I heard a soft, disembodied laugh, echoing from the shadows. It was a sound that seemed to resonate with the very soul of the building, a reminder of its history as a place of both life and death. The following day, I spoke with other staff members, who shared their own eerie experiences within the building. Tales of apparitions in the hallways, strange lights in unoccupied rooms, and the feeling of being watched were common among those who worked the night shift. It became clear that the hospital's past lingered in its present, a haunting reminder of the lives that had once passed through its doors. My time at the converted hospital revealed to me that some places retain echoes of their past, imprinted in their very walls. The experiences I had in that building, where the boundary between the past and present seemed to blur, left a lasting impression on me. The haunted converted hospital stood as a testament to the enduring nature of history, its stories and spirits lingering long after its original purpose had faded into memory. In the quiet outskirts of a small town, I worked the night shift at a solitary gas station. It was a place where the nights were usually uneventful, marked only by the occasional traveler stopping for fuel or a snack. The station, with its flickering neon sign, stood as a beacon in the darkness, offering a brief respite for weary drivers. One night, around 3 a.m., the tranquility was broken by the arrival of a woman. She appeared out of the darkness, her steps hurried and uneven, her face etched with distress. As she entered the station, I could sense her unease, a palpable tension that filled the small space. She approached me, her voice barely above a whisper, asking if she could use the phone. There was a desperation in her eyes that I couldn't ignore. Handing her the store phone, I watched as she dialed with trembling fingers, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. After a few minutes, she hung up, her hands shaking. She apologized, explaining that her car had broken down a few miles away and she needed someone to pick her up. I offered to call a tow truck, but she insisted that a friend was already on the way. As we waited, she paced nervously, casting anxious glances towards the windows. Suddenly, her demeanor changed. Her body tensed, her eyes widened with fear. In a barely audible whisper, she uttered, "He's here." Confused, I looked outside but saw no one. The station's lights cast long shadows across the deserted parking lot, but there was no sign of any vehicle or person. The woman, now visibly terrified, grabbed her bag and rushed to the back of the store. She urged me to lock the door and turn off the lights. I complied, my own sense of alarm growing. In the darkness, we crouched behind the counter, listening to the eerie silence that enveloped the station. Then, the sound of footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. Someone was outside, trying the door handle, jiggling it forcefully. The woman clutched her phone, ready to dial for help. The minutes stretched into an eternity, the only sound that of our shallow breaths and the unsettling attempts to enter. Eventually, the footsteps receded, and the sense of immediate danger passed. We waited, hearts pounding, before daring to turn the lights back on and check outside. The night had reclaimed its stillness, the mysterious visitor gone as quickly as they had appeared. The woman, still shaken, thanked me profusely. She revealed that the man who had followed her was someone she had a restraining order against. He had somehow tracked her down, turning her simple journey into a night of terror. After she left with her friend who arrived shortly after, I was left to ponder the events of the night. The gas station, a place of mundane routine, had transformed into a scene of a thriller, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of life. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that the incident had instilled in me. The woman's terror, the mysterious stalker, and the vulnerability of our solitude at the station played repeatedly in my mind. It was a stark reminder that danger could appear at any moment, even in the most unexpected places. The experience changed the way I viewed my night shifts. I became more vigilant, aware of every car that pulled in, and every face that appeared in the glow of the station's lights. The night of the distressed woman at the gas station remained etched in my memory, a chilling encounter that blurred the lines between the ordinary and the extraordinary.